here in Munich, Germany. And joining us here, our radio audience will rejoin us in less than 2 minutes' time. Look who it is. It's Pro Football Hall of Famer Joe Thomas, everybody. Good to see you, Joe. Yes, that's where
thank you for having me, Rich.
How are you, Joe?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good to see you. Now, you lived here with your family for a while? Is that what
Yeah, so 9 months from January through mid-September, I was out here coaching in the European League of Football for the Munich Ravens. So
no kidding.
Lived down the street about a mile, so I said, I'll just take the subway there. I know how to get to the BMW world. Don't worry about it.
Who are you coaching?
So I was coaching the offensive line for Munich Ravens, which is one of the ELF teams, European League of Football. So,
okay.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Anybody that you see, like, okay, that's...
I'm telling you, my linemen, I keep calling my buddies in the NFL. I'm like, hey, they need a little more development because they don't have the resources and the time that we do, obviously, in the States, but they're every bit as talented as the guys that are playing in the NFL that I played with.
No kidding.
As far as athleticism, like in Germany, they can create linemen and linebackers. Skill guys, not so much. So you got to go elsewhere for that. But if you want big, strong, tough dudes, like Germany's got them.
Yeah, I remember, Germany starting to really get some players in the pipeline going to the U.S., going to the NFL. And is that where they were coming from this league, or?
Well, this league's only 4 years old, so it's really young. But I think most of the guys are going a different path and playing in college in the States because you really need that development time, that college time, because they don't have football tied to schools over here. So if you want to play football like in middle school or high school, you got to go join a club. So there's kind of a barrier to entry there, and then they don't have the resources you do like in the States with weight rooms and meal programs and all the things you get going to college. So most of the guys that have made that transition successfully have gone to school in the States for college and then made the jump, like Bjorn Werner and those guys.
Outstanding. Yeah, here we are in Munich. You can hear the sirens in the background.
Yeah, the
back on the Rich Eisen Show radio network. I'm sitting at the Rich Eisen Show desk furnished by Grainger with supplies and solutions for every industry. Grainger has the right product for you. Call clickgrainger.com. or just stop by. First of two Hall of Famers stopping by here in studio in our first ever international edition of the Rich Eisen Show, live here from BMW Welt in Munich, Germany, is Pro Football Hall of Famer Joe Thomas here. And your duties for the Sunday game is what again?
To go have some fun. Me and Colleen Wolf are going to be the in-stadium hosts for the game.
Yeah.
The crowd pump-up people, the sing-along people, and just a little bit of in-game analysis, but just trying to have fun and bringing the crowd into the game.
So you're saying you're going to be singing Sweet Caroline and stuff like that?
Absolutely.
Or Country Road?
Yeah, both of them, of course, the classics.
That was great the last time we were here when the crowd started chanting and seeing just the intensity of the fans here. It just blew my mind, 2 years ago.
You talk to people that have gone to a lot of games, if you work in NFL events production, like you get a little jaded because you're doing a game every weekend and it's your job. But without fail, every single one of those people that I've talked to that were at that game said it's one of the top 5 moments in a football game in their life, just because they're playing the song Country Roads and all of a sudden they cut it off. And the entire stadium kept singing for like another 30 seconds. It was amazing just to hear the passion for the game of American football, which is not something that, as an American, I expected when I came over here.
And everybody here is locked in. And the same thing in London as well. I want to make sure that everyone understands, is that when, a big play happens and a flag comes in, everybody understands what the flag is mostly for, and they're not still cheering inappropriately, right? They know something is significant that's happened. Fumbles, interceptions. Everybody is locked in on the rules of football and understanding what it's like in real time, watching it, cheering at the right time, also, getting upset at the right time. It's awesome. It's really great to watch, man.
Yeah, one of the cool things for me when I was living here was, just getting to know the neighbors a little bit and asking them, hey, do you know American football? What do you know? And without fail, the ones that were really interested, as you know, Germans, they love their detail. They're really big on stats and, the scientific side of things. And I ask them, you used to love soccer, but now football is more your sport. Why is that? And they say because they love the strategy of it, because it's so complex and so detailed, above and beyond sort of what they're used to growing up playing or watching soccer, that that's the part that they really have been drawn to more than the big hits, which is, a lot of times as Americans, that's the first thing we like. When I was a kid playing football, it was like, oh, let's play football because I get to hit people. But over here, it's really cool because they understand the game maybe at the same level or even better than Americans in a lot of respects.
How many reps could you give me right now? Because you
bench
were
or
commenting
squat?
when he came.
Well, the thing is the Patriots need some line help, and I'm wondering if Joe had any snaps left. That's all.
I think I got one left. Maybe like two if the first one's a run away from me. then I can go another one.
So you get up to 10,365 straight.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like it.
He's my agent on the side.
I like it. I heard that right over there. Well, you saw the Patriots in London. You called that game on NFL Network. Is Drake Maye the real deal? What do you think?
He looks good. I mean, there's nothing that you've seen thus far that says he can't be a great quarterback in this league. Decision-making, accuracy, arm strength, understanding when to use his legs and when not to. Like, he's really improved so much already in just a couple games as a starter. And watching him out there, it was fun. He's a fun watch when he's throwing the ball because he just makes good decisions. And when he does decide to take chances, he's got that great arm.
And you chatted with Jerod Mayo, I imagine, before the game as part of your broadcast meetings and things like that.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about him? And obviously he's not Belichick, that's for damn sure. No. But what'd you pick up from chatting with the new head coach?
It was cool because, talking with Jerod, he started after his football career like in private equity or in like finance, and then came back and started coaching. And I think he really understands how to get through to today's players. And the one thing that he said that really impressed me was he's like, I need to get to know my players on a personal level and let them understand that I care about them first before they're going to start trusting me to do what we want them on the field. And he said that was a big change from, even when we came into the NFL. I think he's my age or a year younger. And I think back then, older days in football, it was just like, hey, coach, he tells me what to do, I go do it. But now you really got to be able to connect with those players. And I think that's one of the things that will make him a great coach down the line.
Joe Thomas, Pro Football Hall of Famer here in Munich, Germany, live with us is our first guest, our first ever international guest. Kurt Warner will be joining us in hour number 2 of this program. The best team in the NFL is which right now, do you think?
The Lions.
You do think so?
I think so. I think their line play is so superior that if they were matched up against a team like, let's say, the Chiefs, right? Chiefs always seem to find a way to win those close games.
Yes.
Comes down to pass rush sometimes at the end. I think the Lions offensive line would be the decision maker in that game because they're just so dominant. They're so multiple. They can beat you in so many different ways. And once they get the lead, Goff's not making any errors, and they can squeeze the ball and run it, or they can protect it if they have to go down the field.
Do you think they're the best O-line in the National Football League?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty big gap between them and everybody else.
And anybody else?
I mean, they have the best tackles in the league. They have the best, not the best guards, but they've got great guards. They've got a great center. And so they really also play very well together. And I think they really fit the scheme that they're trying to run. And they just don't make mistakes. And that's really, as linemen, that's how we get measured.
Yeah. So you think that they're on the path to win the Super Bowl this year then?
Hey, I would love, since the Browns probably not going to win the Super Bowl this year, I can cheer for the Lions because I think there's some brotherhood with those teams that have always been beaten down and that have never won their Super Bowl.
So then let's extrapolate this out.
Oh, here we go.
Joe Thomas.
All right, let's go.
Let's do it. So they take on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, or you think the Chiefs get knocked off before the Super Bowl actually hits?
No,
and if so, by who?
I think the Chiefs make the Super Bowl.
You do?
And teams that can find a way to win close games over and over and over again get a belief in themselves that I think carries through in your preparation because you go out and how many times do you see in situations that my coach told me if this happens, this is what we should do, and it happened. And it just happens over and over and over again, and that builds such a level of trust between players and coaches that they'll be prepared for anything going down the stretch, no matter who they're going to play in the playoffs, no matter what style they have to play to go win that game. And then, of course, it doesn't hurt having Patrick Mahomes at quarterback.
Well, I mean, where does a team get that ability to just keep on finding the right combination at the right time? And a lot of people think that they're just picking locks right now, just trying to break into a third straight Super Bowl because the doors aren't completely wide open for them because of how difficult it's looked for them. But they're still 8-0. How does a team acquire stuff like that?
I think it
Joe?
starts with having a great quarterback that everybody believes in, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how you get the most out of your players, right? There's belief every single day they walk in that building. And so all those players are like, hey, I want to be part of this thing. I don't want to be the reason why we get stopped short of getting our goal of winning a third Super Bowl. And so they have that daily motivation. It starts with having Patrick as your quarterback, feeling like as long as I do my job, he's going to do whatever it takes to win. And then it translates from there to like having an amazing coaching staff, having a guy like Andy Reid who's done it in so many different ways throughout his career. And I think just the stoic seriousness that Andy Reid has and his staff have with their preparation, they never let the moment get too big. And I think that's what really helps when they get into those situational type football games at the end where they need, we're down 3, we need a field goal to tie, or we need a touchdown, what are we going to do? Like, they've never panicked because they always know, like, we've been in this situation before. We got Patrick at quarterback. We've practiced it a million times with Big Red. We know exactly what we need to do and how we're going to do it. So they've all got that roadmap built up in their minds.
Bills or a team in the AFC North to knock off the Chiefs, even though you just gave a very well thought out analysis of why the Chiefs are going to win the AFC anyway.
Yeah.
I give you a choice of Bills or an AFC North team to knock them off, even if they have to go to Arrowhead.
Yeah.
Would you choose what?
So it's interesting because the Ravens is that team that you want to pick, but their pass defense is so terrible that as soon as in your mind you match them up against a team like the Chiefs, you're thinking, how do they ever stop Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball? And I don't know how they would be able to do it, even though Lamar is surpassing his 2 MVP seasons in multiple categories right now, and he's the front runner, in my opinion, to win the MVP. Like, I don't know how you are able to win if you can't stop the pass in the playoffs, because you're going to play great quarterbacks every single week. I don't really believe in the Bills. I just feel like when you watch them, they're a team that seems to be flawed because I don't think they fully believe in themselves as contenders to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And so I would actually say the Steelers are probably a team that could knock off the Chiefs because you can't exactly say why they win these games. You're like, I'm not exactly sure why,
right.
But they don't make mistakes. They don't beat themselves, and they play such good defense. TJ Watt, the ultimate closer out there on the edge, rushing the quarterback, would give Patrick Mahomes a ton of problems. And if they can run the ball and play tough, like sometimes that's a formula that wins games in the playoffs. Not saying it's going to happen,
right.
but if I had to pick one of those options, that's
what
I would say.
I boxed you into doing.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
So okay, so you would take the Steelers out of those 3, I guess, because we're not including the Bengals in there coming into the Thursday night game, needing to get back to 500. Joe Thomas here on the Rich Eisen Show. I did not include the Texans in that mix, and a lot of people thought that the Texans had a chance going into the season to surpass the Chiefs. They've just had a real tough time protecting C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering why. Like, what has happened to that offensive line right now? And I don't know if it's Stroud playing less than he did last year, playing less than, because maybe he's concerned about the trash in front of him, and I'm not referring to his offensive line as such.
Yeah, but
I'm referring to the lexicon of football there, or the fact that he's speeding up because he knows he may have to, or it's just he doesn't have time. So what are you seeing out of the Texans?
Yeah,
it's fixable as well.
Yeah, and that's the problem is if your offensive line's not protecting for you when they're supposed to, now you get the quarterback, he's looking at his feet. He's looking for where are these bodies coming from, where am I going to have to escape? And so instead of having confidence to go through his reads and his progression, he's worried about where the pass rush is. And then you lose a guy like Nico Collins, and you've seen his numbers drop off because I think in his mind he was like, all right, if my protection breaks down, that's how he's walking to the line of scrimmage every play, which is not a way to be as a quarterback. But you can survive that if you got a guy like Nico Collins where it's like, all right, if some bad stuff happens that we're not expecting, but I am expecting, boom, he's right there. And so you have that built-in security blanket right there that he doesn't have right now. And so he's kind of forced to go through his progressions, and I don't think he fully trusts the offensive line to get through those progressions and take what the defense gives him.
What you're seeing, is it fixable?
When Nico Collins comes back.
Well, I mean, I guess the protection, up front, is that something that, and how does one fix a leaky line? How do you do that, Joe?
Better players. I mean, it's really hard because you don't hardly ever see offensive linemen being traded. Right, you see receivers, pass rushers, because the chemistry that's built between an offensive line, it takes months, if not years, to be really good and proficient. And it's not like you can just plug somebody in there. So having more experience together can help cover up some flaws because you can play to your strengths as an offensive line. For instance, if I'm a left guard and I know I'm just not very powerful, right? I just get bull rushed a lot. Hey, I can still play a little bit lighter on my feet, take away some of the speed stuff to the outside, some of the quickness stuff, and then we can just have my center come over and help. And if I'm getting bull rushed, he can just tea kettle the defensive tackle that's bull rushing him and just put him on his butt. And that guy's going to remember it. And then maybe he's thinking the next time, yeah, I can't take a bull rush anymore because that's their game plan is every time I try to bull rush, he's going to come and knock me. And so you can kind of play those little games within the games once you have a lot of experience and you got guys that have played together a long time. But that's not something that just happens overnight because you just need that time together.
Who was the guy when you were playing in Cleveland that was just like, okay, this week I need to get my rest? Who was that guy when you were playing?
Freeney, Suggs.
Is that right?
Yeah, James Harrison. I mean, there was a lot of good pass. I mean, there is a lot of good pass rushers in the league. It's a great league, and those are the most important positions: quarterback, pass rusher, left tackle, cornerback. So naturally, they get paid the most, and all the great humans with athletic talent in the United States get funneled to those positions first. And then if they can't do those, gain weight, we'll play something else, or we'll lose a little bit of weight. And I said left tackle, by the way. But I think with the pass rusher, like they're just such a dominant force to be able to change the game. And when you're playing a guy like Freeney, especially when you're on a team that's not so good, and I know, hey, we might be throwing the ball 45 times today, so he gets 45 one-on-one reps. Now, if I had that in training camp, that would be a nightmare. I'd fake a pulled hamstring or something so I didn't have to go out there in front of the fans and take 45 one-on-ones against Freeney. But that's the life you live as a left tackle.
Let's talk about the Browns before I let you go into your music.
Oh, sorry. I got dinner.
Out of time, everybody.
Look at the time.
Go Thomas, everybody. Thanks for coming on. But what are your thoughts on the direction of this franchise right now?
It's as frustrated as I have been as a fan, and I include my time as a player because going into the season, there was legitimate Super Bowl expectations. That was the conversation around town, and it's been so bad people forgot about that. I mean, they were a playoff team last year with Joe Flacco, and people thought they were going to have better play at quarterback. They were going to have better play because most of the team was going to come back. And typically when you have most of your team come back, you take a little step in the right direction. And so I think it's just been beyond frustrating because expectations were up here, and they're struggling to beat bad teams. I mean, they are a bad team, really. And I think it's frustrating because there's not a clear direction because of the salary that the quarterback has, Deshaun Watson. You don't know what you can do. And then you look, okay, well, let's just say this offseason we're going to try to replace Deshaun and get a young quarterback in the draft. Now, of course, the draft is always a crapshoot. We don't really know, but it's not like the draft analysts are telling us there's tons of great quarterbacks that are going to be coming out of college this year and surefire guys that can change your franchise overnight. So I don't think there is a clear direction if it's a full teardown or if they just think, hey, this year was an anomaly. We can tweak a few things, keep a lot of the same guys together, and just try to survive with a small cap, and hopefully you get different results.
Yeah, I mean, tweaking a few things would probably mean keeping Deshaun Watson and Andrew Berry after sending Zadarius Smith to Detroit, Amari Cooper to Buffalo. He had a press conference on Wednesday and had this to say on the subject of Deshaun.
Really, our focus with Deshaun, I would say for any player with a season-ending injury and a major injury, is first and foremost with the recovery and to make sure that he gets healthy from the Achilles injury. Everything else we'll deal with at a later moment.
Have you assessed how he played, though, before he got hurt?
Yeah, I would say, more broadly, Tom, we didn't play well. We haven't played well as a team, and we haven't played well as a unit on offense. And I think oftentimes when you don't play well on offense, obviously your starting quarterback and your play caller will get the most criticism. But the reality of it is offense it comes down to organization and synchronization. And there's just a lot of shared ownership across the different position groups in terms of why we didn't perform.
A big we'll see on having Watson back as the quarterback next year.
Yeah.
I mean, what would you counsel on that front, Joe?
It's such a unique situation, right? Because of the guaranteed contract, because of the salary cap hit. It's not like you can trade him. If you cut him, then the rest of the salary accelerates. It's almost impossible.
Right.
So it's almost like you have to understand he's going to be on the team. Do you think he's going to be able to recover enough and bounce back, not only just from the injury, but as a player? Because when he was out there, there was some good, but more bad than good. So that clip was like a minute. And basically he said, maybe, but we're in a tough spot. because it's not like you have an easy answer. Like sometimes you can say as a franchise, all right, we know that if we trade a bunch of guys, cut a bunch of guys, we'll have a bunch of salary cap space. We can sign people in free agency, or we can pick up a bunch of draft picks, and then we can change the roster like that. They don't have either of those two traditional options really available to them. And so it almost seems like it's going to be we'll see, probably go with what we had this year and hope for better results and tweak some things on the edges.
Maybe tweaking the game plan or the scheme to make sure it's what worked with Flacco and what Stefanski is known to call and his strengths, and basically tell Deshaun to commit to that. I mean, was that an issue that we were seeing in the first half of the season?
Yeah, so that was one of the things. I listened to Andrew Berry's press conference because I'm a Browns guy.
Attaboy.
And thank you. And one of the things he did say, he was kind of talking about why the team has struggled so much, and I think it seemed like he was not placing the blame, but explaining it a little bit, that they brought in Ken Dorsey to be an offensive coordinator because they wanted to develop an offense that was maybe different than what Stefanski had done previously, by having more shotgun offensive plays, which is what Deshaun's more comfortable with, a little bit more of some of the things that Ken Dorsey did when he was in Buffalo, and get away from the under center play action, which is what Stefanski's history's been with Joe Flacco. And I think he mentioned how slow people were to try to understand kind of what they were doing, and maybe they didn't have everything fleshed out by the time the season started because they didn't know what guys were good at, what guys weren't as good at. And so I think part of this might be, hey, let's not scrap the offense, but let's make sure we really take a critical look at what we're doing and what we're asking these guys to do, scrub down and find out, all right, what are the core concepts that we are good at, that Deshaun can do with this roster of guys that we have, and then maybe sort of extrapolate and highlight those things and just get rid of some of the stuff that they were having a hard time picking up on.
To me, it would just be, and I don't know if I'm oversimplifying it, it would be, here's what we're good at. What the two-time coach of the year, Kevin Stefanski, is good at.
Yeah, right.
You know, that's what we're good at. And we have seen the good. We saw the good in Deshaun Watson before, in the game that he got hurt against Baltimore. He was the Deshaun, like that's as close to the Texans' Deshaun Watson that we've seen. He was terrific, and then all of a sudden it's like he's hurt. And like, oh my gosh, he's not only hurt, he's hurt for the season.
Yeah.
And then we saw what Flacco did. We saw what Jameis Winston did in his first start, although albeit not the second.
Yes.
But we did see like there are things that can be done.
Yeah.
And let's do those. Is that oversimplifying it? Or
no, I think that's a great analysis, and I think potentially what they're going to do this offseason is say, Deshaun, we know you're comfortable in the shotgun, but we're just going to play under center, because that's what Stefanski knows. That's what he's best at. That's
Chubb's
what these
good
guys,
at that too, right?
It just opens up so much more that you can do in the rushing game when you are under center, because when you line up in the shotgun, defense immediately has that checklist in their minds of things you can't do anymore because the running back's not right behind the center. So they have so much of an easier time to be able to read and react when you do line up in the shotgun, because you have a much fewer things in their menu of run plays that you can do. And so I think they're probably just going to – they haven't told me this, but I'm thinking like you are, like, hey, sorry, Deshaun, you're just going to have to learn to play under center, because that's what we're going to do. And we've proven – we saw last year this is just not an offense that's good enough to play out of the shotgun all the time. We need to go back to doing the Stefanski stuff.
I'll see you in the arena, sir, on Sunday. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
One and only Hall of Famer Joe Thomas helping kick off our shows live from Munich, Germany. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.